Hi guys, we're in chapter 11 now. Chapter 11 deals with the workings and the expenses of owning a house. And one of the first things that we have to deal with is real estate taxes. You can't get away from taxes. Taxes are important because this is how our city and government, county government, get their money to run and function. So with this, they give us what is called a real estate and personal property taxes. What's the difference between the two? First one, a personal property tax is taxes that they put on the things you own, like a vehicle, boats, ATVs, and maybe if you own an airplane, you would be taxed on that. The other tax that you have is your real estate tax, and that's tax put on your property and your house. So, with taxes, the government officials establish your property value based on your taxes, and this is called your assessed value. So officials establish a property value on which your taxes are based on, and that's your assessed value. Okay, a mill is one way that they express this tax rate. Okay, sometimes they'll talk about 1/10 of a cent is what a mill is. That's really hard for us to envision. So they tend to change it and talk about it as 1/1000th of a dollar. And this is how we would write it in dollar form. Okay, so a mill is for every 1/1000th of a dollar. Now, let's put this in real life terms here. So let's say that if you have 52.5 mills, okay, what this means is that we have $52.50 for every grouping of 1,000. So just to put it as a weird example here is, let's say our house is worth $1,000. Okay, the taxes that you're going to pay on that $1,000 house is just $52.50. Okay, let's say your house is valued at $2,000. Its assessed value is $2,000. How much would you pay in taxes? Well, it'd be 2 times 52.50 because we have two groupings of 1,000. So 2 times $52.50 is $105. So that would be what you're paying in taxes. Okay, so now that we've got the basis under control, let's actually look at some real examples of how this applies in real life. So one of the examples we're going to do is this example here. Find the tax liability for a house. It's assessed at 52% of its $112,000 market value. Okay, it's got a tax rate of $2.50 for every $100. Okay. So the thing is remember that our taxes are not assessed on the actual market value of the house. It's at the assessed value. So the very first thing we have to do in this example is that we have to go ahead and find what our assessed value is. And this is where that percent comes into play. It says it is at 52% of its market value. So I'm going to take that 52%, change it to a decimal by moving it 2 spots to the left, and then I multiply it by my market value of $112,000. So that gives me the assessed value is at $58,240. That is the value now that we're going to use for finding our taxes. Okay, now the next thing is we've got a tax rate of $250 for every $100. So what we need to do is to find our tax liability is we need to find how many groupings of 100 we have. So we're going to take this tax assessed value and we're going to divide it by 100 to find how much the grouping is. Once I find that amount of how many hundreds I actually have, I'm going to then multiply it by 250. So once I do that, take 58,240 divided by 100, and then multiply it by 250, I get $1,456. That is my amount of taxes. Okay, so now let's actually look at a book problem. So as you're going along on your homework assignment, you're going to find an example for problem 1. Your book problem is find the tax liability for property assessed at $34,500. The tax rate is 1.862 per 100. Now, remember when we talked up here about mill was just an example of one way they did it. They did it out of groupings of 1,000s. Sometimes they will do it out of grouping of 100s. And that's what both of these examples, 1 and 2, have been with, is groupings of 100. But we can, and we'll see later, how we can switch from groupings of 100 back to mills. But for right now, let's get back to our grouping of 100. So what it says is find the liability for property assessed at $34,000. This is not our market value. This is the liability. So we do not have to do like what we did up here in example 1, where we had to find the assessed value. They gave it to us already. So we get to go ahead and we get to jump down to part 2 now. And so we're going to take that assessed value, find out how many groupings of 100 we have. And once I find that amount of grouping, I'm going to go ahead and multiply it by 1.862. When I do that, I see that I have 345 for my groupings, and then I multiply it. I end up with $642.39 is my tax. Okay, let's go to another example here. Another example that we have in our book is another real life situation. Imagine that you're living in town, okay? And in living in town here, you have a house that's valued at $155,000, okay? It tells us that we're being assessed, our tax assessed value of it is at 4% of this $155,000 house. Now, we also have in our taxes all these different mills. So our taxes go to different groups. And so this here is specifically assigning my taxes. So what I need to do is once I have this, the very first step is I need to know how much total mills that I'm dealing with here. So they gave me a group, a whole bunch of different things here, 5 different things. I'm going to go ahead and just add them up. So the very first step before I can move on is to find out how much total millage I have. So add up these amounts, and when you do that, you get $230.5 mills. Now that I've got my total mills that I'm working with, the next step I need to do is find my assessed value. And remember, we need to take my property value and I'm going to multiply it by the percentage. So I take 4%, turn it to a decimal, and then multiply it by the market value. And that gives me my assessed value. That's what I'm going to base my taxes on. Okay, then now that I've got my answers for 1 and 2, now I can keep moving on. What I need to do is I need to take that mills that I just found and change it to dollar amount. Okay, remember mills is 1/1000th of a dollar. So I'm going to take this 230.5 mills and I'm going to move the decimal spots 3 spots to the left, and that's for 1/1000th. And that now gives me my dollar amount of 0.2305 of a dollar. Now I'm going to take that and multiply it by my assessed value to get my tax liability. So how much am I actually paying on all of this? I'm paying $1,429.10. Okay. So let's look at what it would look like in book problems here. I'm going to do problem 10 from your homework assignment. And problem 10 says find the tax liability for a property assessed at $5,500 with 123.56 mills. So it's kind of like a combination of what we just did and the book problem number 1. So what do I need to do? Well, the first thing I need to do is change my mills to dollar form. I can't work with mills without it being in dollar form. So remember, a mill is 1/1000th of a group. So I'm going to move my decimal 3 spots to the left to change it to a dollar form. Now that I've got the dollar form, now I'm going to go ahead and multiply it by my assessed value, and that's 5,500. Go ahead and multiply it together, and my taxes are going to be $679.58. Okay, one other big example that our book gives us here is a situation like this. It says we have an assessed value on the Al Parker's home. It's $94,900. He pays about $1,347.58 in taxes. And we want to know what his tax rate is for every $100. And then once I get that answered, they want us to now change it into mills. So where do I begin? The first thing I need to do is set up an equation. Remember on the other side of the page, when we worked with our groupings, we said that we were going to take the assessed value and divide it by 100 to find how many groupings And then I multiplied it by the tax rate to find my tax liability. This is what it looks like in equation form. Now that I've got the equation, I'm going to just start plugging in the parts that they gave me here from my story problem. And they told me right away at the beginning the assessed value for his home was $94,000. So I'm going to put that first. They told me here we're doing groups of 100, so that goes in my denominator. I'm trying to find that tax rate, and then they told me my total taxes was $1,347.58. Now, I have to go ahead and solve for x now. And to solve for x, I need to get rid of this 100 in the denominator. So I'm going to multiply the top by 100. That's going to cancel out my 100, and what I do to one side, I have to do the other. So I'm going to take this 1,347.58 and multiply that by 100. And so I end up with 94,900x equals 134,758. Divide both sides by that 94,900, and I find out that x equals $1.42. This is my tax rate that they were asking for. Now, the last part is they want me to change that to mils. Now, remember, because I was dealing with groups of 100, I need to change this to groups of 1,000. So what I'm going to do is take this 1.42 I just found and move the decimal spot one more spot to the right. That's going to change it per 1,000ths. And we know from our definition on the front side that 1/1,000th is the same thing as a mil. So 14.2 mils is the amount of mils that I have. Okay, so let's look at book problems here. So I have book problems 11 and 12. Book problems 11 and 12 basically wants us to practice going between these groups of 100 and then going to mils and going from mils back and forth. So problem number 11 says that I have $2.04 for my tax rate for every grouping of 100, for every 100. They want me to go ahead and they want me to switch that to mils. So I need to go ahead and take that 204 and move my decimal spot one more spot to make it 1,000ths. Okay, so I end up with 20.4. And I know for every thousandths that equals a mil. So my answer simply is 20.4 mils. That's my answer. I just simply have to move my decimal spot one spot to the right. Now, going back from mils to making it a group of 100 is just as simple. Remember, I've got 240.2. This is in the thousandths. To make it a grouping of 100, I just move my decimal back one spot. So I end up with 24.02 per $100. So it's really simple to move between groups of 100 and groups of thousands. It's just working with moving my decimal spot to the right or to the left. Okay, the last part of our problems that you'll have for your homework assignment are problems 15 through 22. 15 through 22 are real life situations that they're just taking these examples and combining them together. So read them very carefully to see what they're asking for. If you got any questions, go ahead and text or email me. Have a good day. Bye.